So everyone wants to sell, and everyone is at the same time scared of selling, and they want to have a script on how to sell their stuff. And it's so complicated. So let's break this down and how to fix all those things. And I'm sure you've had this feeling where it's so much easier for you to sell someone else's stuff than it is to sell yours or yourself, right? Your product, your offer, your service, yourself as a product, as a consultant, as a founder. And so there's a couple of things that are at play here. One is that, and the main one is that we don't, because we have a connection with the emotional connection with our product, our service, it's so much harder to see whether we do the actual good work for clients, and it's we have this feeling of like we're not enough. And whenever you have that feeling of not enough, it's so hard for you to go ahead and sell with conviction, because there's always like, well, maybe maybe we can't deliver this, maybe there's all these other kind of objections you have in your own head, and you sabotage the calls. And so what is very important is that you actually believe in what you have to offer. And if you think you're scamming people, if you think if you're not good enough, if you think that your product is not delivering on a promise, then obviously that's a different problem, where when it actually doesn't deliver. But when it delivers, you have to trust it and you have to believe in it without any doubt at all, because as small as piece or part of doubt during a sales call will completely derail it and make it so that your lead, your prospect who's on the call, will also feel it as well. So that's number one. Number two, when it comes to sales, there is some psychology in it, obviously. I mean, there's ways we can convince people. There's ways we should be prepared to deal with objections. There are ways where we should know how to respond to certain questions on the call, or how to react to things, and whether you should actually give them the answer, or maybe you should tell them, hey, I'm going to get back to you. So there's certain things, there's certain frameworks, if you will, or certain tactics, or there has to be a certain preparation, that has to happen before you get on a call. So, for example, you obviously have to know, like what your service is. You have to know what your payment terms are. You have to know how it's structured. You have to know all these other things, and you need to. The more calls you will go through, the more questions you will get about, well, how you guys do this? What about that? How is that structured? And if you so the more you have of those, the more prepared you are for the next ones, because there's like a FAQ kind of section on your website, right? So what is important when you go through them is note down the questions, and if you were not able to answer that question, in an efficient way on the call, then prepare for the next call and get that answer ready. So there's certain things that you can prepare. There's certain things that we have to do as good salespeople, in terms of preparation for the call. Obviously, we have to research who the client is, potential client is. We have to obviously know, like I said, what we're selling and all these other things. But I think a lot of people are just hang up on this idea of like, what is the script? And there's no script. There is a flow of a call. There's certain elements of the call that you have to have in place so that you can have an efficient sales call, but there's no script. Then the reason, and so if you want to follow a script, it will be, first of all, your prospect will feel this. Second of all, it's, every call is very fluid. Like every prospect is different, every company is different, every situation is different. And so you have to adjust to what's happening on the call in a dynamic way. Hence, the script will not work. So how do we deal with this? And what are the elements that I said? Like, well, there are certain elements of the call. So there's a couple things. First of all, you need to understand why you are on the call when you have a sales call. You are not there to sell, and you're not there to serve, not yet, right? So you're not, if you come with a selling attitude or selling, mindset, then what it will do, it will come off as sleazy and pushy, right? If you come in with the serving, I'm here to serve mindset, then you will start teaching and you will start helping on the call. And that leads to the client saying, oh, thank you so much, goodbye, and not buying anything from you because you gave them everything in an hour of the call that you had with them. So that's also bad for your business, right? So it has to be a bit of a mixture of both, but done in a way that what I want you to do is look at it from the lens of, I'm here to understand if that person that's on the other side of the screen or a phone, if that person has a problem, a challenge that I am in position to fix. Because every business exists to solve a problem, right? And so if you are solving a certain problem, you need to identify whether that person on the other side, on the other line, has that problem that you can fix. If they don't, then what's the point of you pitching? And if they do, you can pitch. And that's going to be a good match. So there's this 3 or 4 elements to it. So you have to have a product market fit basically, right? So there's someone who has the problem and then you have the fix. And these people who have the problem, they're willing to fix that problem. And also they're willing to pay for that fix. Because sometimes people don't know they have a problem and you kind of expose that for them. Sometimes they know they have a problem, but they don't want to fix it. Sometimes they know they have a problem and they want to fix it, but they're not willing to pay for it. And so no matter what you do, you can't convince them if they're not willing to fix it or if they're not willing to pay for the fix or if the price that you have is just too high. And then when it comes to kind of all these elements, we're like, oh, you know, they were not aware of the problem. You can educate them. And this is where some of the tactics come into play. When they say, well, this is too expensive, you can use some of the sales tactics to inform them why this is an investment and it's not a cost and all these other things and try to kind of convince them. So there's those little things that you can do to fix that kind of. But what is most important, the overarching strategy and the mindset and the approach that you have to sales is to understand that you're here to identify whether that person on the other side has the problem that you can fix and whether they're willing to pay for it and whether they're willing to actually fix the problem in general. And so for that reason, there's no script because it's a little bit like you're sitting down with a friend at a bar, and that's, by the way, something that I would encourage you that you do when it comes to how do you position yourself and how do you show up on the call. Think about a friend on the other side of the Zoom call, whatever, however you take your calls, and think about, well, you catching up with a friend and you're learning about their business. And so you're asking all these questions out of curiosity, not out of the mindset of I'm here to sell anything. It's just I'm curious. Hey, so what do you do? Okay, cool. How many clients do you have? Oh, 5 clients. Well, how is that working out for you? Like, is that a lot of clients or do you have more space for more? And already that question itself, it comes out of from curiosity, but also it gives you that idea of like, well, this person has 5 clients and they have a room, there's still capacity for another 5. That means we can get them 5 more clients. It's already from a sales perspective. If you're selling, support within sales and lead generation, whatever, gives you the room to kind of plug that offer and say, hey, so are you looking for 5 more clients? Like what's happening there, right? So what you're trying to talk to that friend and understand what is it that they do, how many clients they have, how much are they charging, and all that. Clients often ask me like, can you give me a list of questions? Sure, I can give you a list of questions. But again, the overarching idea is even without the list, you would want to understand those things because you would be curious. How many clients you have, what kind of clients, what is the most common service that you sell, how much are you paying, how long are they staying with you, right? Why do they leave? And those are the questions that I would ask my clients or my potential clients, right? What kind of challenges do you have? Like when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that kind of, hits you as a challenge? And then as they come up with all these, the list of questions, challenges, it's, first of all, it feels it feels nice to them because you're asking them and people love to talk about themselves. So that's a positive. Another positive, outcome of this is that obviously you now know what kind of challenges they're facing, and then you can compare those challenges with the fixes that you have as part of the offer that you're presenting or are potentially to present. And so if you see a mismatch of like, well, they have these challenges, but I don't know how to fix them, they're like, well, you know what? I don't think I can help you because that's not what I do. And then at that point, they can either say, oh, thanks so much. Or they can say, well, okay, so what do you do? And then you can explain to them. And then at that point, they can either say, yeah, sure, you're right, there's nothing in there. Or they can say, well, actually, I also need this thing. So, and then if there's a mismatch, you can also say, hey, I don't think I can help you, but I know someone who might, right? And you can refer them to someone else. Again, because you're showing up on a call to understand the challenges and like truly help these people fix their problems. If you don't have that fix, maybe you know someone else who can fix that problem for them, right? So there's nothing wrong. It's actually very, very well perceived if you actually say, well, listen, I can't help you. And so I'm not here to sell, I'm here to help, but I know someone who can, right? And so coming with that kind of approach will help you restructure your sales calls. And then if you see, so if there's a mismatch, then obviously you can do this. If there's a match, when you see, well, okay, I see you have a problem, I have a solution. This is exactly what I do. This is how I can help you. So you can kind of transition that way. Say, well, okay, I'm hearing that you have this and this and that. This is actually what I help with. Or you can slowly, so that's like a very more direct transition, or no transition. Or you can just go a little bit more softer and just start going into that challenge and say, yeah, cool, that's I understand this because that's, we've been struggling with this as well, our clients as well, and this is how we fixed it. So kind of in between the lines, you mentioned that you fixed this as your service. What is important as well when it comes to selling is that you need to present your offer to the client or the potential client if you see they have a problem that you can fix. If you don't, and I know a lot of you guys are struggling with this because you're like, well, I don't like to pitch, I want them to ask, but people don't know what you do potentially. So how would they ask? That's number one. Number two, I want you to think about yourself as if you were a doctor that is here to help other people. And you see someone on the street bleeding out, and you're walking past them, they're bleeding out, they're like, hey, I'm bleeding out. And you're like, oh, I have a band-aid and I know how to fix this, but I'm not gonna pitch them anything because they didn't ask me for help. They just told me that they're bleeding out, so I don't know if I should say anything or not. You're actually making them disservice. They're bleeding out and you know how to fix that. So when you think about sales from that perspective, that you are someone who has a very specific fix to a very specific wound that people have or injury, and you see them hurting, like how come you can just walk past them and not offer help, right? And so that approach changed completely my view on selling, and my calls were never salesy, but very often I would go into that teaching mode. But these days I knew I needed to fix that. But having that perspective or filter or mindset of being a doctor and trying to help other people really helped me fix that approach, and not being scared of saying, hey, I can actually help you fix this. And it's actually not difficult, blah, blah, blah. Here's how it works. So having those kind of mindset shifts and looking at sales as something that is not there to push your solution onto someone. This is a true curious conversation with someone to see whether they have a problem, whether you have a solution for that problem, offering a solution, being a doctor and offering a solution. Also being a doctor, understanding, hey, before I give you a solution, I need to ask you a few questions, because I cannot give you a medication before I fully understand what's going on and what hurts. That will be irresponsible on my end as well. So it's okay for you to ask questions, because why would you pitch something that's not a good fit? Why would you give someone a pill, for a headache if their stomach is hurting, just because you didn't ask the question, like, what does it actually hurt, right? So for that reason, there's no actual sales script. There's just a mindset approach and certain tactics and preparation that need to be in place, obviously, when it comes to like, well, how do we, deal with this objection, that objection. But that comes from understanding what the questions might be. That comes from understanding, your offer well, and how you position yourself. But I hope this helps, because I get so many questions about the scripts, and everyone wants that, and everyone wants the AI to run their sales, which maybe will be an option in the future. But I feel like having that human to human interaction and conversation, and really understanding who you are onboarding and who you might potentially work with, is still something that should be done by a human. So anyway, I hope this helps.